is Boadu TV. Truth and integrity.
Asiedu Nketia, the chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Keselato Forsen, the finance minister who has brought the dollar to its lowest, Ama Kofi Boa, the minister for lands who is fighting Galamsey with all his life.
Na NDC amayoko no edimbia shase popia eba omo kyerese after GM side no ne betimi hold flag no di NDC enim Julius Debrah eka ho bi Asiedu Nketia eka ho bi education minister Haruna Idrisu eka ho bi edini doso Nana Jenopo Kwajeman omunyina eba na food it so no ye boy remo now Paula don't watch it so only so no sha say we tizi dada ana wasan sum and I say hey early days so after mahama ye adwuma na ye pre dia obedi on 2028 no ama for so ka say ka mahama ye ade de na ye nsan ye emra ne si na mahama san ko bi me oh, hene baba makra ka sese mahama be kwa Ghana fo na beto ma no yes or no na wasan akọ right yembo wura mu ne ekoti Paul Adomochiri data wo ka se sa leading names we ene betimi hold the flag no de ma NDC come 2028 election.
Asiedu Nketia, the chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Keselato Forsen, the finance minister who has brought the dollar to its lowest, Ama Kofi Boa, the minister for lands who is fighting Galamsey with all his life, the venerable vice president, Professor Naana Opoku-Agyeman, and the chief of staff of the vice president, Mr. Alexander Segwefia, formerly of Achimota School and also known as Allegro. These are the crackers. These are the guys, the main people. So why are we talking about them? We are talking about them because President John Dramani Mahama yesterday celebrated or spent out his first 120 days. In terms of running as president for the next 4 years, this is the major epochal situation that President Mahama will never have the opportunity to get again. So it's gone. So as soon as that goes away, then the undertones begin for the new one. In fact, in 2005, this event I'm talking to you about was 6th January 2005. And I was standing on the forecourt of the State House as members of parliament were coming in to be sworn in. And then I walked to meet the venerable Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, who was the immediate past foreign minister and expecting to be foreign minister again. And then during my interview with him, as he was walking up, this was live on City. We had just started City. This was live on City. I asked him that tomorrow, President Kufuor will be sworn in for a second and final term. All eyes of the party are going to be on you as the next leader. What do you have to say about this? Now, in previous interviews that I had, or conversations I had with Akufo-Addo, he never wanted to deal with that question throughout the period of 2003, 2004, before the election. He never wanted to deal with that question. So I was expecting the same answer from him. And then he said, well, tomorrow we have the glorious swearing in of that very distinguished Ghanaian, our president, John Agyekum Kufuor, and that will be his last and final term. We have to give him space to name his government and all of that. But he said this to me, after President Kufuor has settled down, I'm sure that everyone knows that when the party opens the nomination, I, Akufo-Addo, I'll be a candidate again. I remember that clearly. He said, I, Akufo-Addo, I'll be a candidate again. And then we sent him City FM, use the story, and use the story, and use the story. That meant something to me. He said he had always ignored that question, but this is 6th January 2005. The next day was a swearing in of the president, and Parliament was coming in to be sworn in. So he had won his seat again. He was coming in to be sworn in. And I teased him. I thought he was going to push my microphone away and say, get out of this, your question. Because that has been his reaction when I asked him the question. But this time, he said that, well, President Kufuor will be sworn in for the last and final term. After that, we need to give him time to settle his government and to set out. But the time that the party opens the nomination, I, Akufo-Addo, I'll be a candidate again. And the story was used. Akufo-Addo declares his intention. So the intentions are kept in people's mind. But as soon as you finish that epochal situation, naming your government, 120 days, the undertones begin. And having the undertones began, they have begun. Pa. Johnson Asiedu Nketia is in a commanding lead and he's in pole position to win. Johnson Asiedu Nketia is in a pole position to win. Now, Johnson Asiedu Nketia doesn't feel that he should be challenged. No, he doesn't. But this is how government works. You see, when ministers are working, they are working at the behest of the president. Every now and then, they are allowed to act in a capacity that is originally reserved for the president. So the president calls finance minister. Kesel Atufosin, come to the Jubilee House to see. Say, Kesel, next week I have to be with the cocoa farmers. But the World Bank has invited me to be in Washington to chair this event of World Bank Advisory Committee. Can you represent me on that one? So he goes to Washington representing the president. That happens to ministers, different kinds of ministers at different times. So once you're a minister and you get into that situation, it's always going to cross your mind. Do you have a money boama here? Oh, you don't have a money boama here. Okay. It's always going to cross your mind that, I said a money boama is a dark horse. So you keep him, I'll call for it. It's always going to cross your mind that, what about the presidency? Just maybe. What about the vice presidency? Just maybe. So Kesel Atufosin and his friends have already started talking to him that, listen, Ato, if you are able to become a very successful finance minister, the whole NDC campaign hinges on the success that you have achieved in the stability of the economy and in the stability of the dollar. No one is going to be more popular than you, Kesel Atufosin. So if that happens and you can enter the race, you beat Asiedu Nketia. After all, Asiedu Nketia is only party chairman. He has nothing to show about what he himself has done with the success of the government. He's party chairman. So the whole government success is a success. But you, Atufosin, you are the minister responsible for finance and economic planning. If economic planning and finance goes well, it is you. You are going to be reading the budget. You are going to be the star of every budget. Every budget is going to be the most important thing in parliament, more important than a sessional address. So, Ato, if you do your work well, you can lead the NDC onto a resounding victory. After all, Osafo Mafu went for the primaries. He nearly won. So, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And many people also believe that if Kojo Banredu had not died in 2008, maybe in 2012, he would have given Akufo-Addo a run for his money. Because everyone remembered Kojo Banredu as a good finance minister, blah, blah, blah. But then he died. So finance ministry is an important place where you can gain the platform to lead the party. As a result of that, viewers, our brother Kesel Atufosin has started thinking about it. And I'm serious. I know what I'm talking about. He's thinking about it. There are people who have been given schedules to work for him. Our brother Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa is coming from the Western region. The Western region have never really had leadership of any political party, whether the NDC or the NPP. You can talk of Peter McMenu, who was chairman of Western region, but McMenu is really an Ashanti product. Just that he did his business in Western region. Proper Western region, Jogate people, proper Western region has never really led the party of MPP and of NDC. NDC have benefited significantly from votes in the Western region since the Rawlings time up to election 2024. Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, if he is successful at Lance, he's the Western show boy, he's the Western star. If he projects himself as the Western region star and secures the support of the West and Central region, he is getting close to giving Asiedu Nketia a fight for a run for his money. So Amakofi-Boa is also running. The vice president is being told by everyone that whether NDC can win the next election or not, a huge chunk does not depend on MPP. It depends on how the NDC is successful in government. If the NDC is successful in government and the president who is successful as the NDC president cannot run again, then the president's principal partner for this successful NDC government is the vice president. Why are you looking for a candidate outside the vice president if you want the NDC to get a straight two-term? It is the vice president. She's the candidate. So Professor Jenano Pokwajiman is also being thought about as a potential. And then you have Alexander Segbefia, who has been thinking about this for quite a bit. The Volta region. They have given NDC everything. The Volta region has given NDC their spirit, their soul, their food, their clothing, their tears, their laughter, their dancing, their bobobo, their geometry, their environment, their forest. Volta region has delivered to NDC everything that it has, nothing left. But until now, no, since Rawlins, you cannot really call Rawlins a Voltarian in that context. Yes, his mother is Voltarian, but Rawlins is a Ga or an Obroni, half caste or something like that. So Rawlins is there. Kojochi Kata is there. But in terms of a Voltarian, qua Voltarian, leading the NDC, it hasn't happened. Alexander Segbefia and his supporters fancy him as being the one to break that jinx. Hey, it's been a while since we heard break the 8. Like the way we have not heard 24-hour economy. It's the Pudong guy. I'll come back to him during the campaign. I'll come back to him. Don't worry, I'll come back to him. Now Black Rasta is taking over, but he's there. Pudong, I'll come back to him. 24-hour economy, we haven't heard it. Alexander Segbefia is the one to break the jinx, to get the Volta region in pole position. So much to the frustration of Johnson Asiedu Nketia, it's not going to be a walk in the park for him. He may still be able to win, but it's not going to be a walk in the park for him. I've heard people talking about Chief of Staff, Julius Debrah. Do you have him somewhere? They'll get it for me very quickly. I've heard people talking about Julius Debrah. Oh, I can't talk about Julius Debrah when I have another person's photograph here. All right, so once it gets me Julius Debrah's photograph, so I can do something proper on it, then they can edit all this part out. Yes. So I've heard people talk about Julius Debrah, but I've also heard in there that as for Julius Debrah, he has one ambition, that John Mahama succeeds. So he's not yet there in presidential candidate. No, he's not. You know, he's a cadre from Eastern region, very, very strong cadre, very, very strong one. And that he has immersed himself into the John Mahama agenda. That when in 2017, he immersed himself into the John Mahama agenda, people thought that it was not an agenda that would succeed, that he should leave it. But he had confidence and faith in it. He stayed with John Mahama. So for Julius Debrah, his whole life is that this second term of John Mahama has to be successful. So he's not yet in the he's not in the presidential race thing. He's focused on John Mahama must succeed. Whether come rain, come shine, come high water, John Mahama must be successful as a president. That's what Julius Debrah is thinking and he's saying. That's what the people around him are talking about. He lives it, he breathes it. So he's fiercely focused on that. If you cross the John Mahama line, you have crossed Julius Debrah. He doesn't take he holds no prisoners when it comes to John Mahama. His philosophy is John Mahama. His ideology is John Mahama. John Mahama must succeed. So for now, we can't talk about Julius Debrah as a candidate for no. He's very far away from that. He's focused on pushing the John Mahama agenda. So maybe if you look at the other people in there, let's get the list again. The one if this is very early, very, very early, I have to say. But the one that perhaps will come close to the situation, Case Atuforsen, now the dollar is down. He's done excellent. The dollar is down. Atuforsen has done well. The Galamsey, it's been a while since I looked at it, but there's a tough fight. But President Mahama says Aluta continua. So we're looking. But Case Atuforsen, Marco Fibua, it's going to be tight. Whoever carries Ashanti region in the NDC is very likely to carry the day. Johnson Asiedu Nketia will carry his region, of course. If Atuforsen is running, he'll carry Central, of course. If Amako Fibua is where he carry Western. If the vice president is running, he will carry votes from Central as well against Atuforsen. Alexander Segbefia will carry the North, Oti and Volta. Whoever can secure Ashanti, big, that person will push himself through to lead the NDC. But it's very early days. Too early for us to spend too much time on, but we are beginning little by little, poco a poco. We are getting there. God give us life, and we'll see what happens eventually. Let's go to text messages.
Paul, from Bill King, he says, if Mahama performs exceptionally, I will give him a third term. I mean it. From Moses, he says, Brother Paul, as far as the NDC next leader selection goes, unless death or illness, Julius Debrah is likely to take over with advice to be taken from the Volta region. President Mahama is going to vouch for him at all costs. From Ebenezer, he says, yes, it's true some NDC folks have started posting on Facebook Atuforsen is the next president. And lastly, from Paul Mensah, he says, please, Paul, include Julius Debrah to the list. Over to you.
All right, so Alhaj Bob CD says, Paul, assalamu alaikum. The 120 days of John Mahama is nothing but a scam and empty praises, Paul. The cement we buy at 80 or 85 Ghana cedis in January is now 120 or 130 Ghana cedis, even very scarce. Galamsey is now a legal business because all the NDC top hierarchy are involved in Galamsey Underground. Paul, the price of Kinke is now 5 or 10 Ghana cedis. Jumso has humbled John Jinapo, and now on the hideout, the government is still charging COVID levy. They condemned. Cost of living is very high. The president didn't talk about unemployment because he engages in sacking those who are employed. Electricity and water tariffs have shot up. Paul, the NDC is just noisemakers in the market, but little achievements. I will score the president 3 out of 10. Now, Peter Abdul Khalik says, there is a great difference in party politics and management of the state, a clear and consistent practice in governance, but due to the propagandist and greedy politicians, we see everything and every action in government as partisan politics. Now see how the NDC, the Attorney General, biased media stations are now worried with the current revelations from Mr. Edu Boahin. The true meaning of democracy and government and governance is above the understanding of a lot of the NDC footlooters who follow blindly to every noise being put out there. We must grow up from such. What do you have for us, Antoinette?
Yes, so it seems people are still making more suggestions for the NDC presidential candidate. Moses Champon, for example, says that it's told that one of the two men who financed President Mahama's second term is Julius Debrah. Isaac Owusu-Boateng is asking Paul if he's forgotten about Professor Joshua Alabi, as he has not had any position in this government. He thinks that the NDC will surprise us by presenting Professor Joshua Alabi as the presidential candidate. Now, Borga Britain is saying if all these people are vouching, then where would Haruna Idrisu fall? Bilkin says we need an Ibrahim Tero kind of leader in Ghana. Shadrach Mbelam says, but Atuforsen is a Asiedu's man. I thought they are going to patch off. Otherwise, the NDC party is going to be something. Say, Paul, you know this NDC cannot do it as we, the NPP, do. And lastly, Prince Casimiro Opoku also seems to be vouching highly for Haruna Idrisu to be the next NDC presidential candidate.